SVD, Singular Value Decomposition, is a grand finale of linear algebra. On one hand, it combines all important concepts of the subject into just one theorem. On the other hand, it's extremely relevant and applicable in the age of data science and machine learning. This is a one-matrix decomposition that rules them all. In surface, the SVD is saying that any matrix, regardless of symmetry, rank, shape, can unconditionally be decomposed into three very special matrices. But there is actually an intuitive and elegant visual interpretation underneath. I think it would be quite cool to see for ourselves, don't you? And yep, there is a catch. To truly internalize and appreciate the theorem, a journey is required, and hence, the previous chapters. For example, it's good to know that diagonal matrix stretches each axis, while the orthogonal matrix produces a rotation. I highly recommend Chapter 2. To be honest, if you understand spectral decomposition, you understand 80% of SVD. And there are 3 more tiny steps we need to take to complete the journey. You probably noticed, all the visualization we have seen so far comes from square matrices. Very sneaky on my part. However, the primary appeal of SVD is it generalizes to rectangular matrices as well. Therefore, we need to understand how to visualize such things. But firstly, what exactly is the difference between the two vectors here? My teachers say the left one is in R2, the right one is in R3. I used to think those are the same thing. I mean, they both have 1 for x, 2 for y, and they got nothing for z, right? Even if we do represent them on graph, they look somewhat similar. I go ahead, asking the vector on the right about z value. It said, oh, 0. I go ask the z value of the left vector. It got very confused, having no idea what a third dimension is ever like. In addition, I can go nudge the R3 vector around such that z value is no longer 0. But for the R2 vector, no matter how I rotate, stretch, scale, it is always devoid of z. Despite looking similar, in reality, they are completely different species that live in different dimensions of the universe. If those two types of vector are so different, is there a mechanism which can transform one to the other? And that's the power of rectangular matrix. In particular, a 2x3 matrix has the ability to take a vector in R3, transforming that down to a vector in R2. Makes quite a lot of sense if we just look at the matrix vector multiplication. A matrix of size m by n has the power to transform a vector in the nth dimension to a vector in the mth dimension. This is why we say matrix apply a linear transformation from Rn to Rm. Remember, we can represent vector as arrow, and represent arrow as dot, and a collection of dots as object. Simply illustrating the visual of a matrix is simple, but the process of interpretation is hard. The visualization of rectangular matrix gets very confusing, so it's good if we try to understand the simplest case first, which is this matrix. You see, it's similar to the identity matrix, but the rectangular version of it. For the context of this video, let's give it a cool name, the dimension eraser. This matrix here represents the simplest form of linear transformation from R3 to R2. Its multiplication with any vector always preserve the x and y, but completely remove the z value regardless of the initial z. So what this means is that, for example, the vector 1, 2, 1 in R3 would get mapped down to the vector 1, 2. But all the vector in the form of 1, 2 any z transforms to 1, 2. We can also have something like dimension adder. For example, this 3x2 dimension adder here basically appends 0 as a z value for whichever input R2 vector. Oh, actually, I think here's a good place for me to show you a composition from R3 to R2. Whenever we multiply matrix and matrix, we essentially combine their distinct linear transformations. Here, we can multiply the dimension eraser with this diagonal matrix, and let's call this product matrix C. The dimension eraser takes away the third dimension, and then diagonal matrix stretches the x and y axis accordingly. the matrix C, since it's a composition of the two matrices on the right, would basically encapsulate the two transformations, but in just one go. Chapter 2 Flashback. Symmetric matrix is a square matrix in which on two sides of the diagonal line, the entries are identical. It has a very strong property which almost no other matrices have. The eigenvectors of symmetric matrix are perpendicular to each other, so that means if we normalize the eigenvectors and package them into a matrix, we get an orthogonal matrix, which implies rotation. The transpose rotates the eigenvector to align with the standard basis. If we don't take the transpose, that matrix rotates the standard basis to the eigenvector. Symmetric matrix is nice. We gotta take advantage. Yet, everyone knows most matrices in nature are not symmetrical. But we just happen to have the ability to artificially construct symmetry out of nowhere. Consider this matrix here, which is obviously not symmetrical. If we take the transpose and multiply them together, we get a square matrix. But also symmetric. We can also put the transpose on the left and do the multiplication. We'll once again see a square matrix that is also symmetrical. It's good to take a moment here to appreciate we just created two symmetric matrices from a rectangular matrix A. In general, this is true for any matrix A, which AA transpose and A transpose A are symmetric matrices. See if you can prove this statement on your own. For now, we stick to the concrete case when A is 2 by 3, and let's give them some meaningful names as well. Since they're symmetric matrices, the letter S better be in there. Let's call AA transpose S left and A transpose A S right. I know that you know S left and S right are symmetric matrices. So, S left would have 2 perpendicular eigenvectors in R2, and S right would have 3 perpendicular eigenvectors in R3. Since all those eigenvectors are closely related to the original matrix A, we have special names for them as well. The eigenvector of S left are known as the left singular vector of A, and likewise, the eigenvectors of S right are the right singular vectors. Up next, I'm about to provide 2 facts without going to the detail. S left and S right are known as PSD matrices. This implies the eigenvalue for each eigenvector are non-negative. The second fact, which is now obvious, if we sort the eigenvalues in descending order for both sets, the overlap ones are numerically identical. The biggest eigenvalue of S left equals to the biggest eigenvalue of S right, and so forth. The leftover eigenvalue is guaranteed to be 0. Just like the singular vectors, those shared eigenvalues are indirectly derived from the very original matrix A. If we take their square root, and my friend, those are the singular values of matrix A. A lot of things we did so far seem random. We have ambiently collected all pieces of knowledge which we need to understand SVD. Now behold its entrance. Once again, any matrix A can be unconditionally decomposed into 3 very special matrices, in which the matrix sigma is rectangularly diagonal, the matrix V and U are orthogonal matrices. But what exactly are they? The matrix sigma would have the same dimension as matrix A. The numbers on the diagonal are the singular values of matrix A, arranged in descending orders. Every other entry is 0. The matrix U contains the normalized eigenvectors of S left, which are arranged in descending order of their eigenvalues. Another way of saying this is, matrix U contains the left singular vectors of matrix A. On the other hand, matrix V contains the normalized right singular vectors of matrix A, also arranged in descending order, and then we transpose that to get V transpose. And remember, This generalizes to all kinds of matrix A. The moment I've been waiting for, the visualization. The matrix A here, by itself, applies a complicated linear transformation from R3 to R2. But we know, using SVD, it can be perfectly understood as sequentially applying the three simple matrices on the right. The blue matrix, or V transpose, is an orthogonal matrix which applies a rotation such that the right singular vectors return to the standard basis. So more precisely, the singular vector with the biggest singular value lands on x-axis, the singular vector with the second biggest singular value goes on the y-axis, and so forth. The matrix sigma is rectangularly diagonal, and it's essentially a square diagonal matrix composed with a dimension eraser. The dimension eraser is removed in the third dimension, and so that the diagonal matrix stretches x and y axis based on the singular value. And the final step, the matrix U, rotates the standard basis to align with the left singular vectors. And boy, you bet, those transformations composed is exactly the same as A. So Wikipedia said a few things about the visual flavor of SVD, that any matrix essentially just maps sphere into ellipsoid across different dimensions. Let's see for ourselves. After singular value decomposition, the first step of any linear transformation is always a rotation in Rn. If you rotate a sphere, it's still a sphere. Taking away the third dimension of a sphere in R3 makes it a circle in R2. Stretching uniformly along the x and y axis makes a circle an ellipse. And the final rotation still preserves the geometry of the ellipse, just changing that to a different position in R2. And by no means that was an rigorous proof, but certainly some intuitions. And lastly, let's look at an example of a linear transformation from R2 to R3. The spirit of SVD very much still holds. Firstly, we begin with the rotation in R2, but next, since the matrix sigma is 3 by 2, we scale based on the singular values. And then, we're adding a new dimension. And finally, we rotate the standard basis, x, y, z, to align with the left singular vectors. This video should end now. Nonetheless, it's good to contemplate on a question. Is the entire purpose of SVD to decompose a linear transformation into those 4 sequential actions? Is our visualization the correct interpretation of SVD itself? Not exactly. I mean, what even is a matrix to begin with? This mathematical object has different interpretations under different contexts. The same matrix can mean very different things to different people. Another popular interpretation of SVD is to view a high-rank matrix as a summation of rank 1 matrices. An application of this is low-rank approximation. We can view a picture as a massive matrix of pixels and gradually approximate that picture by adding more and more rank 1 matrices. A wise man once said, "The purpose of computing is insight, not numbers." I think the same goes for visualizations as well. SVD as a math exercise is an intense algebraic procedure to follow. Sometimes, after 3 pages of matrix multiplication and characteristic polynomial, I understood of nothing of what I just did. But decompose and visualize a matrix A into 4 distinct pieces of simple transformation gives you so much more insights than you'd otherwise have. Every single step, interpretable and makes perfect sense. We know precisely what's going on. In particular, that very initial step of rotation, from the right singular vector onto the standard basis, actually captures the essence of something called principal component analysis. I promise a video in the future. Even when things extends beyond the 3 dimension, this type of decomposition still gives us a reasonable intuition of linear transformation on vectors, allowing us to say about things which we couldn't see. We know that a rotation does not make things bigger or smaller. Therefore, when this matrix acts on higher dimensional object, nothing scale, squash, blown out of proportion, but a pristine rotation around the origin. And after that, the last two dimensions of the object is taken away. Sometimes learning the final theorems of a subject is like climbing a mountain. We get a nice scenery on the top, a higher level overview. But it's nice to look afar at the other summits, and what we see is a Fourier transform. I just want to say some similarity they share about the two monumental theorems of obsession with extreme generalization and decomposition. The Fourier transform is saying any function can be decomposed as the sum of sinusoidal wave functions. And then when you see the pie creature, you already know it's a good video. I left link here. And thank you for watching through the end.